evening. This is the India development debate right here on ET Now, and it clearly looks like India is scoring high on ease of doing scams too. The back-to-back fraud cases involving diamond trader Nirav Modi and Rotomac founder Vikram Kothari have revived the debate over the Indian mentality to exploit the legal loopholes for financial gains. Experts say the low-risk, high-reward proposition also works as a catalyst for financial scams. Moreover, there is hardly any stigma attached to white-collar crimes here, which makes India a fertile ground for the likes of Malias, Modis and the Choksies. Some believe the legal framework is not equipped to work as a strong deterrent too, and that could well explain India's poor ranking in the World Corruption Perception Index, coming at a poor 79th position. But today, we are going to break through the Nirav Modi scam and talk to you about the investigation so far. Why is it easy to perpetrate a scam in India? And what is the way forward, at least in this very case? So what will bring the necessary changes? How to fight corruption more effectively? And that's exactly what we're debating on the India Development Debate this evening. And joining us on the show is a stellar panel right here. C.R.A. Vasundaram, Senior Counsel, Supreme Court. Sanjay Hegde, Senior Advocate, High Supreme Court. Prashant Bhushan, Public Interest Lawyer. G.V. Narasimha Rao represents the BJP here. And Sanjay Jha from the Congress Party. Thank you, each one of you, for being with us right here on ET Now as we discuss and debate what makes India a fertile ground for scams and what is really happening as far as investigation is concerned. We've covered the lapses, we've had various discussions on the PNB fraud, but tonight, we are putting the focus on the investigation so far. Are we lacking? How big are the lapses? And where are the loopholes? I'm just going to begin this show with GVL Narasimha Rao, who represents the BJP and in turn the ruling government here. Mr. GVL Narasimha Rao, it has been 8 days since we first heard of the PNB fraud, since we first heard of the Nirav Modi gate that it's been called. The only thing that we know tonight is that the matter has been politicized. The UPA has blamed the NDA has blamed the UPA, and we are still grappling for questions. Does India not deserve to know what is the truth? Does it not need to know the truth beyond the politics of this scam?
No, I think, Supriya, the truth about this is known to the people. I think the manner in which banks were used, the state-run banks had been used as political fiefdoms for a long time in this country, and that culture of politicization had certainly ruined the entire banking system. So in 2011, if the same questions would have been asked in 2011, what has been asked in 2018, this scam would not have happened. I think even in the Malia gate, we have seen how there was political interference, how at the level of the Prime Minister and at the level of Finance Minister, they were directly interfering in the functioning of the banks. And in fact, Malia was able to get the then PM and FM to intervene and arm twist the banks which were not willing to lend him money, which were not really willing to even restructure his loans. So I think such gross political interference and also gross corruption, and now you know the lack of any basic monitoring systems in the banks has really brought us to this pass. Certainly it's a matter of great concern, but this government has actually identified the scam, and the real the real reasons why this scam happened is because no such security, no such systems existed in the previous regime. There is a need to tighten the belt. There is a need to enforce discipline, and RBI also must come into questioning as to why we have had someone like Raghuram Rajan, who could see the bank, who could see the
right.
world recession, but how could he not see the kind of scams that were happening in the banking system right under his nose?
Right.
I think these are questions that will have to be asked and answered by everyone concerned.
No, absolutely. I get your point there, but just for the benefit of our viewers here and just for the richness of this debate, I will urge all of you to stop wearing your political hats and talk to us about taxpayers today, because this is about taxpayers' money. You know, you can't keep going back to the UPA, and just like UPA can't blame you for every ill. You've been in government for 4 years. Yes, things started to rot under the UPA, and I think they have questions to answer there. But you can't keep blaming the UPA, and you can't just keep blaming the RBI. You've been in government for almost 4 years now. But Sanjay Jha, I have a question for you. What's on with the investigation? The IT department has seized 29 properties, 105 bank accounts that were related to Nirav Modi. The CBI has a preliminary case. The ED raids have happened. Assets have been seized. But what is happening beyond that? Because as a citizen of this country, this is usual pattern. This happened under you. This is happening under the NTA.
Well, let me tell you one thing, Supriya. I don't want to wear a political hat, but I have to give a short rejoinder to the ridiculous comments made by the BJP spokesperson. This is the great Indian bank robbery, which has happened under the nose of India's Prime Minister. The PMO was fully aware of it in 2016 and 15. But the bottom line, if there is a monumental fraud happening on the banking system, is because this government of Mr. Modi has actually bailed out not just Lalit Modi, Vijay Mallya, Sanjay Bhandari, Mehul Choksi and Nirav Modi, but I can tell you this is the tip of the iceberg. Now, to answer your question, and this is a very relevant question, Supriya. I've been a former banker, so I'll answer this with great honesty here. And let this be open to other panelists to respond on. You see, the reason why, I honestly believe that the Indian banking system has got very robust checks and balances. The RBI, by the way, was considered, at least for some time ago, as one of the best central bank regulators in the country. What has gone wrong? I mean, clearly there has been brazen political interference. And I will link it to one factor. You see, when you have a situation today where ordinary people have to declare their Aadhaar to even get their ration, people are dying of starvation and hunger because they are not able to provide their Aadhaar card to get their basic food for subsistence, and you have Nirav Modi and Mehul Choksi flying off and getting a complete red carpet send off by Mr. Modi's government. I'll tell you what is the real reason behind it. The real reason is that the government facilitates a transfer of resources to the wealthy people, who in turn fund the political parties. And I want to link it to this point. You have a situation today where the finance minister of India has brought out an electoral bond scheme where contribution can be made to a political party, but the donor will remain anonymous. Why? Why is it that, Supriya, that such an intelligent channel like ours, and you got some very eminent panelists, why are we okay with this non-transparency? Why are we okay with this opacity?
There's another day.
Sanjay Jha, this is the fundamental source of the entire corruption.
No, Sanjay Jha, there is another day to discuss electoral bonds. Today is not that day, and today I will not let the two of you get away by blaming each other, because we are trying to understand. It's been 8 days. Where is this investigation headed? What are we going to make out of what IT department is doing, what ED is doing, what the CBI is doing? Let me get in Mr. Ari Sundaram into this discussion. Mr. Sundaram, you know, it's been 8 days. Yes, IT department has seized 29 properties, 105 bank accounts, complaints against 3 companies. A preliminary case has been registered by the CBI. But where are we on investigation? That's, as a common citizen today, I want to break through the mess and the maze and ask you this very simple question. Where is investigation headed into this matter?
Supriya, if I could answer you in as short a manner as possible, I think we have to deal with 2 different things. One is all the causes which has led to this ridiculous scam. I say ridiculous because it was such a, I mean, if one had only looked beneath the surface, it would have been found out any time. One is that aspect of it. The other aspect is that after it came out as to what the investigating authorities have done. Now, according to me, the investigating authorities, I cannot really find fault that in the last 8 days, the speed at which they have proceeded, I can't find fault. They have taken the steps which are normally known to be taken, which is first that you safeguard and get as many of the assets as you can, which is frozen or locked up or secured, so that a recovery is possible. Investigations will continue to find out who or what is behind it. One of the biggest problems here is, thanks to the great ineptitude of the government, all the people, the main players, have all fled the country. So to start an investigation, you're really starting it with people, all of whom are saying, look, we weren't in the know, because the people in the know are already out of the country. So that will involve its own legal process of first identifying where they are, how, and then asking for letters regotri to try to go and investigate with them. We'll investigate with other governments to find out where the monies are there. It is going to be a long drawn process, and please don't expect a case to be all ready to be filed, for a court to be hearing it, and for a decision to come in a very short time. Because basic problem here is most of the people who can give the evidence, who can be investigated in the matter, have fled the country. And the people who are really left here are chaps who are going to say, look, but I don't know exactly what happened behind those closed doors. All I know is these are the papers I was asked to sign. What the investigative authorities can do and are doing, I understand, is trying to get hold of all the documents which are available to see whether they can get any kind of link up in this.
No.
But they're definitely going to be hampered to an extent that they're not going to be able to interrogate the main players.
No, absolutely. I can't agree with you more on that. That the main architects of this scam, if I may call it, have already fled the country. But this is not the first time that perpetrators of white collar crimes like that have. I mean, Quattrochi in the past, Anderson, Lalit Modi. There are just so many who've done that, and yet our system doesn't seem to adapt itself to arresting that. But Sanjay Hegde and Prashant Bhushan, if I may come to you, sir, he actually threatens, and I'm going to quote from the letter he's written to the Punjab National Bank. It smacks of being so brazen. He actually says, in the anxiety to recover your dues immediately, your actions have destroyed my brand and the business and now restricted your ability to recover all dues. What is that brazenness on account of? Mr. Bhushan?
No, obviously the brazenness is on account of his earlier experience that he was able to sort of just walk through the system and do whatever he wanted within the system. The brazenness with which, even after the scam had been discovered, it was discovered by Punjab National Bank supposedly on the 16th of January, but a week or 8 days after that, he stands right behind the Prime Minister, gets himself photographed with the Prime Minister. So obviously he believes and he knows that nothing really is going to happen to him because he is being protected by very powerful forces. The fact that he is related to Ambani is one other fact. And this is not the first time that this is happening. You remember this Winsome Diamonds and this man called Jatin Mehta. This scam was also discovered in 2014 or so, but before they arrested this man, Jatin Mehta, in 2016 he flew out of the country and went off to St. Kitts, and he has become a permanent resident of St. Kitts. And we are left with holding the bag of 7,000 crores that he has flown with. So obviously these people are brazen because they know that they are enjoying the protection of very powerful forces, and that Jatin Mehta is also related to Vinod Adani. Jatin Mehta's son is married to the daughter of Vinod Adani. So therefore, these people know that they are protected by powerful forces and that nothing particular is going to happen to them.
Right.
That's the reason for their brazenness. He is just showing his thumb to the people of this country and saying that there is nothing that you can do about it.
GV Narasimha, I'm coming to you in just a minute, but let me get Sanjay Hegde to also, say something on this matter. The letter that Nirav Modi has written to Punjab National Bank, and I'm quoting from that, says, the erroneous liability resulted in a media frenzy, led to immediate search and seizure of operations. And then, of course, he goes on to say, this has thereby jeopardized our ability to discharge the dues of the group of the banks. I mean, does he realize it wasn't media that went and that did the search and seizure? That was done by investigative agencies. Where is this blame game on account of? The fact that media's reporting cannot be a grouse that Mr. Nirav Modi can nurse at this stage.
Well, Nirav Modi will say anything and everything. The classic Hindi phrase is "Ulta chot kotwal ko daate." The point is that this was a Ponzi scheme of LOUs which kept on getting refreshed at higher and higher levels, which he managed to get from the bank through a few officials who for reasons of their own cooperated with him. Each of these scams that have come out, each of these financial frauds that have come out, have several things in common, in as much as the fraudster knows well in advance that this entire edifice is going to collapse one day. So, much before the collapse, most of the money has already been salted away, whatever can be recovered. In Nirav Modi's case, there was a very clear signal when his children were taken out of school mid-term and then sent off to the US to study. A lot of people wondered why. This is the kind of intelligence or market intelligence which neither our investigating agencies nor our commercial organizations seem to go after or act upon. As far as Modi's brazenness with the PNB is concerned, he is just adding to the confusion, trying to make out a case that the defamation and the diminution in brand value has also affected his ability to repay the debt. I don't think he has any serious intention of trying to repay anything.
Not at all.
Right
In
now,
fact,
he is
no.
standing
Right.
abroad on foreign shores, saying, "Come and get me,"
Right.
knowing pretty well that it is extremely unlikely that he can be pulled back in.
No, absolutely. In fact, he's almost saying that I don't have the ability to pay you anymore. And, you know, it's upon you. He's actually put the liability on PNB for what has happened. But GV Narasimha Rao, I will let you rebut the point that you wanted to initially refute and also ask you this question. 8 days later, when will we know what the exact size of the fraud was? There hasn't been an official figure either from the government, the bank, or even the RBI at this stage. What was the sense of total exposure? When will we get to know that? Because in his letter he says that the business that was, the valuation was approximately 6,500 crore rupees. That was of course search and sought, and which could have helped reduce or discharge the debt to the banking system. He says, and also writes, like you acknowledge yourself to PNB. So I'm just trying to understand, as a citizen of this country, as somebody who's tracking the scam and as somebody who's reading this every day, whose money from taxes that I pay is going to recapitalize PNB, that what is the actual size of the scam and why is there no official figure just yet?
No, but ever since the investigations began in right earnest, but I don't think you can really arrive at that final figure in such a such a hurry. The PNB in any case has given a list of complete LOUs and the total value of those LOUs in their filing with the SEBI. So I don't think the agencies are completely clueless, but to arrive at the final figure, we will have to wait for them to really prepare a charge sheet, and certainly all the details that the country wants to know will form a part of it. But the reality is, I think Mr. Prashant Bhushan is trying to take pot shots, but he has himself been a lawyer for many such clients in the past, and if this government really had any intent of saving him, this scam would never have come to light. This is not a Prashant Bhushan discovery. This is a PNB complaint in the court. Can I complete my statement? It's a PNB filing in the court. It's the PNB which itself filed an FIR, and because they refused to renew the LOC of 2011 without security, because this government has ensured that banks are certainly they have greater accountability. If this government or PNB wanted to hide the scam, Prashant Bhushan would never have heard this. This has been going on because they were getting rolled over each time, and that's what made even Nirav Modi to tell the bank that what the Congress has allowed me to do, please allow me to do even now. If the PNB had allowed it, Prashant Bhushan would not know what
give me a
PNB
chance
was
to
doing.
respond to this man.
One second. I think GV Narasimha Rao is raising a direct point with Prashant Bhushan, so it's only
It's
fair
not
I let
your
him
discovery.
Right. I let him come on that point, and then I'll come to you, Sanjay. Prashant Bhushan, the fact that GV Narasimha Rao says it isn't a discovery that was made by you, it wasn't a discovery that came to light on its own. This was done by Punjab National Bank, whose majority shareholder is the government, and he believes that the government encouraged Punjab National Bank to come ahead and report this scam.
Why was the government sleeping for the last few years? I mean, if the government was so vigilant, etc., this discovery happened because some honest official caught on to the scam and he reported it, and as I said, he reported it on the 16th of January. and week or 8 days after that, despite the PNB official reporting it to his senior bosses, etc., this fellow Nirav Modi still has the temerity to go and get himself photographed with with Mr. Narendra Modi. And he says, and the government says that no, he was not part of the official CEO's delegation, he was just hanging around there, and therefore he got himself photographed. I mean, what can be more ridiculous than this? And as I said, this is not the only occasion that this has happened. This has happened earlier with this gentleman of Winsome Diamonds called Jatin Mehta. He escaped the country in 2016. He was allowed to leave the country despite the fact that the scam of 7,000 crores had been known, and yet he was allowed to get away from this country, and he has become a citizen of St. Kitts.
Right.
And we are seeing this happening because all these people are related to Ambanis, Adanis, and our Prime Minister calls them Mehul Bhai. This Mehul Choksi calls him Mehul Bhai.
Right.
He gets himself photographed. Obviously, they were enjoying protection.
Right. Okay, Prashant Bhushan, you're raising a serious allegation there, but I don't think being photographed with the Prime Minister is a crime in itself. But your point well taken on being related to powerful people. Sanjay Jha, I have a more direct question for you, and I will let you refute the point that GVL made. But my direct question to you is, while you can take pot shots of this to this government, there were whistleblower complaints against Choksi even in the past when UPA was in power. Why did you not concede? Why did you not do anything about it? Because today, my question is, who is going to end up footing this bill? Because RBI has really clearly said it is going to be PNB's responsibility to pay off other banks, which means that PNB is going to incur some losses on its own balance sheet. I mean, what is the solution out there? Who is going to foot the bill? And aren't you partially responsible as well? Because there were whistleblower complaints that were raised when you were in power, and you can't absolve yourself of that responsibility.
Well, Supriya, let me tell you, the banking relationship may have started in 2011. But what is the sequence of events? And let's go by logic here. In both 2015 and in July of 2016, the different whistleblowers, Hari Prasad in 2016, for example, sent the letters directly with documents to the Prime Minister's office, Mr. Narendra Modi's office, besides other senior people in the Financial Intelligence Unit and the Finance Minister himself. No action was taken. It's on record that the registrar of companies, without even asking for the evidence from the whistleblower, closed the case. Now, isn't that a staggering bluff? I mean, how can we try to overlook what was clearly here a case of blatant favoritism? The second point, the majority of the LOUs, over 90% of the LOUs, which have turned out to be fake and fictitious, were actually issued in 2017 from February down to May of 2017, right when this government has been in power. Now, what is very intriguing, Supriya, and I've been a banker, I can tell you this, that the Prime Minister of India and the Finance Minister of India are maintaining an extraordinary silence on an issue where close to 30,000 crores have already been looted from the banking system, if you add to it the Rotomac Vikram Kothari's money. And this is, by the way, the tip of the iceberg, because I can tell you there are other consortium of bankers which have lent more money to these people on the comfort of the guarantees or the letters of undertaking of Punjab National Bank. So you have a situation today where these numbers can actually become 5 times bigger if the investigation is totally transparent. Now, end of day, look at the very brazen, I would say, violation of basic norms. The CBI files an FIR against Nirav Modi 1 day after the Davos summit is over. I mean, how is that not an extraordinary bluff being called on the people of India?
Okay, just hold your thoughts there, because I want to get CRO Sundaram back into this discussion. And Mr. Sundaram, my question has still not been answered. A, what is the actual size of the scam? GV Narasimha Rao says it takes time to realize that, so I'll give him that. But the reality is, how do the investigative agencies plan to recover the 11,600 crore figure that is being quoted in public domain? That's the figure that is making headlines. How do the investigative agencies plan to recover that money which is being publicly quoted? Because the regulator has very clearly said PNB has to pay off other banks, which means it will incur loss. But it also erodes shareholder value. And what about that?
Well, the way these things often function is the investigating agency's job is to really investigate, to trace out how the fraud occurred, who were the people responsible for the fraud, to find out as to what violations have been done of law, which provisions have been violated, to apprehend the culprits, to bring the culprits to book. So far as recovery itself is concerned, recovery is something which can only be done out of assets which are available. At best, the investigative agencies can seize whatever assets are available. But more than seizing whatever assets are available, there is really very little that an investigative agency can do to recover funds. What the investigative agency does is to find out what caused it, how was it done, the modus operandum, the main players, the actors behind it, the conspirators in it, the provisions of law violated, and bring forward a case together to apprehend and to convict these people. The recovery issue, all they can do is seize the assets. You know, I just want to touch on one other thing, Supriya, which I feel is of some relevance, which I feel is something which we should really think about, is how does such a scam occur? You see, the investigative agencies today, what are they going to be faced with? It's really unique that a few officers of a nationalized bank this size can keep, without even being supervised in any manner, give letters of authority in the manner that they have, can give undertakings in the manner they have, only because they have some personal interest in it, and there is no check and balance. Now tell me something, if there is no check and balance within that system, what can the investigative authority do? Bring to book every one of the directors for not having a check and balance on the system? And that is where your fundamental problem comes in. This is the problem of the government trying to run businesses instead of governing the country. If you had private investors whose own money was at stake and the directors were people who had a financial stake in the bank, then they would take far greater care about looking after the bank's money. Today, if a private bank was to collapse, who's lost money? The shareholders of the bank. But if a public bank like this is going to collapse, who's lost money? You and me. We're the taxpayers. We are subsidizing all this.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is, because none of these people has a personal interest or stake in it,
Right.
you can always get one of these chaps to always look as to how he can, feather his own bed by getting more and more money in, get bribed,
Yes.
do all this. Because now if I own the bank, if it was my finance in the bank, I'm not going to be giving letters of authority like this.
Absolutely.
But none of the people who are in the bank, including the directors, have any personal interest. They have no personal interest. All they're doing really is carrying out a job. If they find there's a way they can make money, they're making money.
Absolutely.
And this system is,
Nothing.
it's become an endemic corruption in this country because of that.
No, nothing explains the fact that 70% of our banking is still with the public sector banks. I mean, nothing explains the fact, and which is where that crony capitalism angle, and whether it's the NDA or UPA, one can't wish away the fact that banks need to be privatized. Government needs to get out of controlling banks as well, but I think that's a debate for another day. Sanjay Hegde, while we are talking about how will this money be recovered, and Mr. Sundaram says the only way to do it is to seize assets, some figures to the tune of 5674 crore rupees, about 5700 crore rupees roughly worth of assets, which includes diamond, gold, jewelry, and all of that has been seized as reported by the Enforcement Directorate. But what is the claim that Nirav Modi used proceeds of crime to acquire these assets? And the question also is, how have we arrived at these values? Can this perhaps be taken into account? Can this be used to repay the banks?
Well, you could conceivably run an argument like that, but there are many steps to be taken before you come to that final denouement, because many of the things seized are most likely to have been properties which are owned by others, including customers who have already paid for them, including franchisees to whom the stock has been transferred. I was reading some figures with regard to some 6 flats which are there in Bombay. Those flats you'll have to check whether there are any mortgages with any other financial institutions. My personal suspicion is that at the end of the day, even these assets seized are unlikely to be liquid or in any position to be liquidated soon and to be applied to the existing loans which cannot be financed anymore. The point also is, Ms. Sundaram was telling you quite a bit about the investigating agencies and what they will be doing. But as far as the investigating agencies are concerned, they are only looking at it through the prism of criminality. How do we nail Nirav Modi and how do we get him to face justice as far as a criminal trial is concerned? The work of recovery, however, is entirely different, and it may be that if you have one task force which combines both or takes an overall view, which can even probably negotiate in terms of plea bargaining and all that, saying that you will get a lighter sentence provided you give back the money, those kind of options also need to be explored. Right now there is no particular reason for Nirav Modi to cooperate with either the investigators or with the bankers.
Now forget about cooperation.
There has to be somebody to take a call on the whole picture. On the whole picture, how much money can we recover? How much money is the man willing to spend? And how do we keep our hands on his throat so that he disgorges more?
So it has to be a holistic approach. But before I go back to GVL Narasimha Rao and Sanjay Jha, Prashant Bhushan, want to quickly ask you, are there enough...
Can I just say one thing here? I want to add one thing here.
Sure. If I may also ask you a question though, are there enough tweaks in the Money Laundering Act to ensure...
You know, what is worrying me...
Go ahead. Go ahead.
What is really worrying me here is what has come out of the mouth of Nirav Modi. What he has really said is that because of what has happened now and quote unquote overzealousness of banks or whatever, I'm not going to be able to repay the money I could have paid otherwise. Now that is something which really worries me, because what he is really saying is that the assets which are available here are not sufficient to pay back the money. What he is really saying when he says that because of this, I'm not in a position, because my business has come to an end, otherwise I would have been able to pay back the money over a period of time. Now I'm not able to pay back the money, shows two very clear things. One, there is a lot of money that he owes, and today he is currently not in a position to pay it. Then I ask myself, and to take off from where Sanjay Hegde left off, the assets which are there, what is their real value? What is their real value if you're going to try to sell them as a distress sale? How do you arrive at this value? Here you're saying someone has been puffing up his accounts, getting LOUs from letters of authority from banks, has been recircling stock. How do you know that the valuation that he has given for this is a real valuation of the product itself?
Fair point. Yeah,
These are all issues which are very serious and makes it, and I'm a bit worried because of the statement he made, saying I'm not going to be able to pay now. That worried me.
That's a valid concern. But Prashant Bhushan, are there enough tweaks in the Money Laundering Act that have been made to stake claim on seized assets irrespective of how they have been acquired? Because proceeds of, there was this whole issue of proceeds of crime to acquire assets. Wonder how has he acquired these assets? Maybe he's taken a genuine loan from some other bank.
Yeah, I mean, quite apart from the fact that if he has run away with the money, then clearly all his assets can certainly be seized, but also the assets of the companies that he is controlling. You can lift the corporate veil and seize those assets also. But there won't be much assets in India, because most of these loans he took abroad. He used those LOUs abroad, and he has clearly, this was a planned escape. It was planned months in advance, and therefore it is very unlikely that he has left any substantial assets in India. All his assets have been transferred out. That too, if the Indian government were serious about this, they can seize his assets abroad also. They can use the UN Convention Against Corruption, which obliges all foreign governments to aid this process. If there is a criminal investigation for which information is needed, or for which his assets abroad are required to be seized, then the foreign governments are required to aid that process. So if the Indian investigating agencies are serious, they can seize his assets abroad, and I am sure that he has substantial assets abroad. which he might have tried to distribute to other companies that he has set up in tax havens, etc., or in the name of his various relatives, etc. But all those can also be seized if you can show that eventually it has come from him. But the question is, I don't think that the Indian investigative agencies are going to be so bold, so forthright, so as to go after him to this extent, because as I said,
Right.
he clearly enjoys protection at the top.
Okay.
They will make a
Right.
show of going after him,
Right,
but
right.
eventually nothing substantial is going to come.
And on that note, I'm going to go back to the politicians. And GV Narasimha Rao, while enough and more has been said on this investigation, I have a very simple question. Where is Nirav Modi? He's been told to be in New York, Dubai, Belgium, Hong Kong, all sorts of places. His passport has been seized. He's writing letters to PNB. He's sending emails, but we don't know where Nirav Modi is.
I think the concerned agencies, I think it's for them to really trace him down, and I'm sure they would be having an idea as to where he is currently residing, because when he has traveled on an Indian passport, I don't think it will be very difficult for them as to what is the last port of entry on his passport. But more importantly, I think this scam has come to light. Unlike what people like Mr. Prashant Bhushan would want to really mislead the people, this has come to light because this government and Prime Minister are sincere and serious about bringing all these scamsters to book. There is no political patronage available. Otherwise, they would all be sitting in Delhi, rubbing shoulders with Prashant Bhushan and other mighty lawyers in Delhi. They have run away because they have perpetrated a scam, and before the scam really came out in public domain, they really made it they left the country. Otherwise, they would simply be sipping tea with Prashant Bhushan in IIC and giving him contributions to run Common Cause. So they are scared. They know this government is going to go whole hog, not going to let them get away. They are going to catch them by their hook. I think that's the fear. I think once this government goes after, I think there will be many more people who will be wanting to run away. I think it's now time to possibly make a law to ensure that anyone who has any kind of a bank loan should not leave the country. I think possibly we have come to that.
Okay. Sanjay Jha.
Like Vijay Mallya, like
anyone who has a
Jatin
loan should
Mehta.
not leave this country.
Gentlemen, please hold your horses. Sanjay Jha, I want to come to you, and I know you were smiling out there when GV Narasimha Rao was making a passionate plea about how this government has been able to bring this scam to book, and they will nab Nirav Modi. You haven't been able to do so. I mean, the Congress doesn't have a stellar track record as far as these fugitives are concerned. During Congress's time, it was Warren Anderson and Quattrochi and Lalit Modi who fled out of the country. During BJP's time, it's Nirav Modi, Mehul Choksi and Mallya. So in some sense, I think it's a charade from both political parties, and it's us who are left answering and asking questions.
Supriya, I think we are comparing apples and oranges here. I do feel here that what you're witnessing in the laundry list of very eminent industrialists of India who have disappeared under the nose of Mr. Modi's government, a clear pattern. Lalit Modi, they wanted to give him humanitarian assistance, which is why India's foreign minister and the Rajasthan chief minister laid out the red carpet welcome for him. They wrote testimonials for him. As far as Vijay Mallya was concerned, they changed the lookout circular to
Your own track
facilitate
record,
his send-off.
Sanjay Jha.
Sanjay Bhandari, another remarkable case, happened just 2 years ago. No, I know, there is something very interesting about Nirav Modi that actually came out yesterday. A couple of media reports have highlighted that Nirav Modi, openly following demonetization, changed a lot of the customers' black money into white. Roughly 5,200 customers, rupees 90 crores was converted from black money into white. Now the question that arises, Supriya, that we need to ask Mr. Rao and Mr. Modi is, how is it that the income tax since the last 15-16 months, it's over a year since demonetization, never found this out? Never filed an FIR. There was no charge sheet. Nobody's been arrested. And you know, the ultimate truth is that figures don't lie. And we all know that demonetization was supposed to be
Right.
an attack on black
Okay,
money.
okay.
Well, where is the Kala Dhan?
No, no, no.
Mr.
But
Modi's
Sanjay Jha,
government
you're not
has
answering my
not been
question.
able to arrest a single big-time crook in this
no.
country
Sanjay
because
Jha-
they get political funding from them.
Sanjay, I understand. You're not answering my question on your own track record, which hasn't been stellar. I'll leave it at that because I've got very little time on the show. Mr. R. Sundaram, I have a question for you. Whether it is Vijay Mallya or Nirav Modi, the two cases I'm presuming are different. In case of Vijay Mallya, it was a willful default. In the case of Nirav Modi, there is obviously a track record of a fraud here. How differently will those be handled as far as authorities who are planning to get Nirav Modi back is concerned? How do we plan to extradite him? Is there any hope, given the past record of not just the NDA but the UPA as well, on getting fugitives back in India?
Well, it all depends on the country where you find him, whether we have an extradition treaty and to what extent our extradition treaty goes. But the main point is extradition is permitted in certain conditions, in certain cases, as the treaty would permit. Now, in most such cases, is issues of corruption, issues of money laundering, all these are reasons to bring back a person and to get him extradited, so long as you know there's no political motivation behind getting him back. Now, looking at it that way, what I find in this present case, if you tie in corruption with the officials and make him a party to this corruption, by which this corruption has resulted in defaulting of large-scale fraud by which government monies have been stolen, and also are able to show that there is an aspect of money laundering involved in the old aspect, then there's a fairly good case for extradition. What the government has tried to do in the Mallya case is to show that in Mallya's case, monies were being siphoned out after having been taken from the bank, and therefore they are bringing it under the money laundering aspect. Whereas here, if you can also bring it within the corruption aspect, you must remember in the Mallya aspect, the question of corruption didn't come up.
Right.
Whereas here, if a question of corruption comes up, then most governments with whom we have extradition treaties would be inclined to look into the matter to extradite the person back.
So let's keep our fingers crossed that at least we'll be able to get Nirav Modi back. He can't game the system and fly away. But the question also is, how did he escape? And Sanjay Hegde, how did Nirav Modi get away? He clearly seemed to have had a blueprint in place. Is this simply a coincidence that, you know, allegations of demonetization, the changing from black to white money was made? Right after 1 year, he becomes an NRI. He leaves the country within 2 months of that, and suddenly 2 days after he leaves the country, PNB Brady branch deputy manager Gokulnath Shetty retires. The PNB new manager detects the fraud within days of this. I mean, why could our investigative agencies not have been not so lax? Why could we have not arrested his departure from here? How did we let him flee?
Well, you let him flee, and after he fled, he came back to Switzerland and took a photograph and photobombed that opportunity. The point is that you will not see if you do not look for these obvious signs. As I told you, his children had been moved from school over 6 months ago. Did nobody spot that? The point is that all these scamsters who know that that one day the whole house of cards will come crashing down also have their exit plans in place. The money is salted away where investigators and their creditors can't get it. They will have safe houses. The question is, do we not appoint one person who has overall command of getting back both the debtor and as much of the money as is salvageable? Right now, what we also see is too many agencies running around a bit like headless chickens,
Right.
trying to do what they can. There does not seem to be any unified command.
Right.
I think if you have somebody who says that I am responsible and who will also then thereafter monitor the prosecution,
Okay.
I think
okay.
that would be a great step.
All right, I have 3 last minutes and I will request my last 3 speakers to be very, very precise and brief there. But Mr. Prashant Bhushan, what kind of changes do you believe are criminal jurisprudence and amendments being made towards rules governing financial crimes, the white collar kind of crimes that we are increasingly seeing in India? What kind of changes need to be made so that there's less gaming of the system, just to speak in common parlance?
Well, one of the changes is transparency. Why should the people of India not be given proactively information about how much loans have been taken by these people, who has defaulted, what kind of frauds have been done? In fact, all this information was asked for under RTI from the RBI. RBI denied it. CIC ordered them to give this information. They challenged it in the high courts. All these cases came to be finally decided by the Supreme Court about 2 years ago, and the Supreme Court directed the RBI to release all this information about scams, defaults, NPAs, etc. But even 2 years after the Supreme Court judgment, the Reserve Bank has not disclosed this information.
Right.
Now, obviously, they want people to remain in darkness about how much of their money has been stolen and by what means, by which people, etc.
Right.
How much loans have been taken. For example, if the Financial Intelligence Unit had been active, they would have found out that Nirav Modi is acquiring all these showrooms and various assets abroad, and they would have asked as to where is he getting these this money from.
Absolutely.
And they would have found that this is all being kind of stolen out of the banks like this through these LOUs.
Last quick words on this, GVL Narasimha Rao. The question also arises, what kind of a country we are living in where it's so easy to conduct a scam and flee the country? I mean, it does tell something about our system being so rotten.
No, absolutely. I think there is a lot to be really worried about. There has been a complete collapse of ethical systems in the banks. Banks had been used as personal and political fiefdoms by the political bosses, and there was rampant corruption in the banking system. But RBI as the overall, because this government certainly has gone several steps ahead to professionalize banks, because there has been no interference political whatsoever ever since we came into office. None of these loans can be linked with anybody in the BJP or in the central government. There is a complete arm's length distance that this government has maintained, but RBI not having been able to detect the kind of scams that perpetrated is certainly a matter of great concern. There needs to be a far greater regulatory control, and RBI, I think, has really not been able to do its job. And certainly it can't be the handiwork of 3-4 officers in the PNB to perpetrate a scam of this size. So I think the accountability must go right to the top of these banking systems, and I think an example must be made so that the people of this country have confidence. And people know that the scamsters will not get away, and those who have allowed this scam to happen will pay a price.
I don't think the government can absolve itself completely out of this. You just can't blame the RBI. But Sanjay Jha, very quickly, I just have 30 seconds in the show, please. Go ahead.
I think on anti-corruption, Mr. Modi's government has sent a very weak signal to the people of India and to the institutions. They have not appointed a Lokpal. 4 years have gone since the act was passed. The RTI has been diluted, Supriya. The whistleblowers bill has been virtually truncated. Nobody's even talking about it. And last but not the least, you have a banks board bureau. And what have they done to professionalize the banks? Punjab National Bank got a vigilance award, for heaven's sake. Can you imagine a monumental scam of epic proportions, and the government gives the Punjab National Bank a vigilance award? I think that is a testimony to the rotten system that currently prevails.
Not the
and this government is culpable for having perpetuated that at this point in time.
I mean, I think at the end of this debate, it's been a fascinating discussion. I can't thank my panel enough. GVL Narasimha Rao, Sanjay Hegde, Sanjay Jha, Prashant Bhushan, and C.R.S. Sundaram. Thank you very, very much for joining us on this edition of the India Development Debate. But I think as a parting note, we've got to tell our viewers here that there's something grossly wrong in India's banking system. The unholy trinity of bureaucrats, politicians, and PSU Bank. And it's obviously time that the government gives a very, very serious look to banking sector reforms. But the focus tonight was on investigation. Maybe there are too many agencies investigating this scam, and there perhaps need to be one agency that is not just going to look at investigating and setting up criminality of this, but also look at complete recovery. But on that note, completely out of time on this edition of the India Development Debate. Thank you very, very much for being with us.